My wife cheated on me with her boss, then secretly transferred $250, $0 of our savings into her sister's name before disappearing. Now she's threatening legal action over the house, and I feel completely betrayed. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing all this out, but here I am. The thing is, I thought I knew everything about my wife, Lisa. We'd been married for 8 years, and honestly, I thought we had a good thing going. She was the kind of woman who always seemed to have everything under control, smart, beautiful, confident. But all that changed in a matter of days, and the whole thing started with just a gut feeling that something was off. It all began about a month ago. Lisa started acting weird, secretive, distracted, always on her phone. She'd hide her texts, get defensive if I asked her who she was talking to. At first, I brushed it off as work stress or her just being tired. She's a high-powered executive, after all. But then I noticed she was spending a lot more time on her laptop late at night, and she'd always shut the screen fast if I walked into the room, little things but enough to make me suspicious. One day I decided to check her email. I know, that's not exactly the most mature move, but I was desperate. I found a string of messages between her and her boss, Mark. The tone was flirty, suggestive even. Nothing explicit at first, but the way they talked about meeting up after work, keeping it discreet, and not letting anyone find out it was obvious something was going on. That moment hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt my stomach drop and my blood run cold. I kept digging. Over the next few days, I noticed more signs. Her phone was full of new numbers I didn't recognize, and she was secretive about her whereabouts. Then I caught her in a lie. She told me she was working late at the office, but her location data from her phone showed she was actually meeting Mark at a downtown hotel. That's when I realized she'd been sneaking around for weeks. The woman I trusted, the woman I loved, was cheating on me with her boss. The betrayal cut deep, and I felt like I'd been punched again and again. I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I spent the next couple of days gathering evidence, trying to process what I'd found. I was hurt, angry, confused. Every emotion hit me all at once. How could she do this? After everything we'd been through, after all the promises and plans we made, she was out there lying and screwing around. It was like my entire world was crumbling. And then, just when I thought I couldn't take any more, I found something even more shocking. I discovered she had transferred $250, $0 of our savings into her sister's account without telling me. I don't know how she managed to do it so smoothly, but it was clear she was planning something. The money was gone, and I had no idea what her intentions were. Was she planning to run? Or was this some kind of way to cover her tracks? Whatever her reasons, it felt like a punch in the face. The trust I had left was evaporating fast, and I realized I was sitting on a powder keg ready to blow. That's when I decided I couldn't stay silent anymore. This wasn't just about her cheating. It was about me. My life and everything I'd built with her. I needed to confront her, get some answers, and figure out what the hell was going on. And honestly, I was furious. Not just because she was unfaithful, but because she was lying, stealing from me, and probably planning to disappear. I knew I had to act fast, but I also knew I needed to be strategic. This wasn't going to be a simple fight. It was the beginning of something much bigger, something I wasn't prepared for, but I had no choice but to face it head on. The day I finally confronted Lisa was the day my entire world shifted again. I had a plan, or at least I thought I did. I'd been watching her every move, gathering every piece of evidence I could find. I didn't want to accuse her without proof, but I also knew I couldn't just sit back and let her keep lying. When I finally called her into the living room that evening, she looked at me with that fake smile she always used when she was trying to hide something. It was like she knew I'd found her out, but she was trying to pretend. Everything was fine. "Lisa, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She sat down on the couch, crossing her legs and giving me that "what's this about" look. I took a deep breath and laid everything out, her emails, the hotel meeting, the secret bank transfer, everything. Her face first went pale, then flushed with anger. She started denying everything, saying I was paranoid, that I was reading too much into her work emails, that Mark was just a friend, and the money transfer was some kind of mistake. I didn't buy it. I told her I had the evidence, and if she wanted to keep lying, that was on her. I told her I was done being played for a fool and I wanted the truth. That's when she snapped. She called me controlling, said I was overreacting, and accused me of not trusting her. She even had the nerve to say, "You don't own me, John. I can do what I want." That statement hit me hard. It was like she was trying to justify her betrayal, as if she had some right to do whatever she pleased, regardless of our vows or our marriage. I felt a mixture of rage and sadness. I trusted her with everything, my heart, my money, my future, and she'd thrown it all away for some guy at work. I couldn't believe how cold she was being, how easily she lied to my face. I told her she needed to leave that night, that I couldn't live with someone who was so dishonest. She started crying, saying she loved me, that she was sorry, that it was just a mistake. But her tears didn't feel genuine. They felt like a show, a desperate attempt to save her ass. As she packed her bags and left that night, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. The house was suddenly too quiet, too empty. I kept replaying everything she said, every lie, every excuse. The betrayal cut so deep that I couldn't even cry. I just sat there, staring at the door, feeling numb. All I kept thinking was, how did it come to this? How did I miss all the signs? How could someone I loved and trusted do this to me? That night I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing with questions and anger. I kept thinking about the money she transferred. Was she planning to disappear for good? Was she going to run off with Mark, or was this just her way of covering her tracks? I knew I had to do something, but I also felt utterly helpless. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. And the worst part, I was left with nothing but broken trust, shattered dreams, and a house that suddenly didn't feel like home anymore. The next morning, I went straight to my lawyer. I needed legal advice, and I needed to know what my options were. The house, the money, everything was now a battlefield. I'd never been involved in anything like this before, but I knew I had to fight. I had to protect what was mine and figure out how to get some sense of justice. The lawyer told me I had a lot to consider: divorce, custody, reclaiming the money, and maybe even some kind of fraud charges if I could prove she transferred the funds illegally. It was overwhelming, but I knew I couldn't just sit around and do nothing. That day, I also started looking into her phone records, bank statements, anything I could find. I wasn't just going to let her walk away with my savings and my life. I wanted answers, and I wanted her to pay for what she'd done. I felt betrayed, furious, and honestly pretty broken. But deep down, I also knew I couldn't let her ruin me. I'd fight for what was right, no matter how much it hurt. After I gathered all the evidence and spoke to my lawyer, I knew I had to act fast. Lisa wasn't just leaving behind a trail of lies and betrayal. She was also trying to cover her tracks with that money transfer, and I had a sinking feeling she was planning to disappear for good. I started digging into her financials more aggressively: bank accounts, credit cards, even her sister's name she'd transferred the money into. That's when I found out she had already moved most of it out of her account, wrapping everything up like she was preparing to vanish. It was a shock to realize she transferred $250, $0, without telling me. I don't know how she managed to do it secretly, but she did it, and it was clear she was trying to get as far away from me as possible. I felt a mix of rage and helplessness. That money was supposed to be our future, our safety net, and she'd just taken it like it was nothing. It made me furious, more than furious. It felt like she'd stolen my life, my savings, everything I'd worked for. I started thinking about her motives. Why would she do this? Was it just to run away? Was she planning to start fresh somewhere else? Or was she trying to punish me by draining what little stability we had left? I couldn't figure out her real reasons, but I knew I had to stop her from completely disappearing. I called my lawyer again, and we discussed the possibility of freezing her accounts, getting a court order to recover the money, and even filing charges if we found evidence of fraud. Meanwhile, Lisa was still trying to paint herself as the victim. She kept calling, claiming she was confused, that she made a mistake, and that I was overreacting. She even accused me of being paranoid, saying I was possessive and controlling. The more she lied, the more I realized she was trying to gaslight me into backing off. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I'd seen her texts, her location data, and the bank transfers. She was lying to my face, and I knew I had to do something drastic. One day I decided to confront her again, this time face to face. I told her I knew everything, that I had all the proof, and that she couldn't keep hiding behind her lies. Her reaction was something I'll never forget. She looked furious, then desperate, then almost resigned. She tried to deny everything, but I cut her off. I told her I wasn't going to let her walk away with my money or my life. I told her I file for divorce, take her to court, and fight for everything she tried to steal from me. It was then she snapped. She started screaming, calling me crazy, possessive, and accusing me of trying to ruin her life. She said I was just a jealous husband who couldn't handle losing control. That's when she threw in her final card. She threatened legal action over the house, claiming I was trying to cheat her out of her rights. It was a classic move, tried to intimidate me into backing down, but I wasn't backing down. I told her she was done, that I was going to fight her for everything, including the house, the money, and whatever else she thought she could get away with. She stormed out that day, leaving behind a trail of chaos and her lies. I stayed there, staring at the empty house, feeling the weight of everything she'd done. The betrayal was so deep I didn't even know who she was anymore. I'd loved her, trusted her, and she'd turned around and destroyed everything. The shock was almost unbearable, like waking up from a nightmare where everything you believed in was just a lie. But amidst all the chaos, a strange clarity started to emerge. I realized I couldn't undo what had happened, but I could control what came next. I could fight for my rights, for my money, for my sanity. I could rebuild from this mess, even if it meant starting over alone. I knew she was trying to manipulate the situation, but I was determined not to let her win. I'd fight her in court, I'd recover what I could, and I'd make sure she paid for the pain she caused me. It was the beginning of a long, ugly battle, but I was ready to face it head-on. Over the next few weeks, the chaos only intensified. I was deep into legal battles, trying to freeze her accounts and recover the money she'd stolen. Every day brought new surprises, more lies, more attempts to manipulate the situation. Lisa wasn't just sitting quietly. She was fighting back, trying to spin her version of events to anyone who would listen. She claimed she was the victim, that I was trying to control her, that she was just taking a break from a stressful marriage. Meanwhile, I was trying to piece together what was left of my life. The house, which I thought was our safe haven, was now a... She kept threatening legal action over the house, claiming I was trying to cheat her out of her rights. The truth was, I just wanted to protect what was mine, what we had built together. But her accusations made everything more complicated. She was trying to turn the situation around, make me look like the bad guy, and I could see her doing it with that bitchy, manipulative smile she always had when she knew she was winning a round. I hired a private investigator to dig into her activities. Turns out, she'd been secretly meeting with Mark, her boss, even after I found out. They'd been planning something, probably her escape plan, because she'd been talking about starting fresh somewhere else. The pie also uncovered bank statements showing she'd transferred more money into her sister's account, more than what I initially found. It was clear she was trying to hide her tracks, maybe even planning to disappear for good. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, angry, and exhausted. I remember sitting in my lawyer's office, staring at the pile of documents, feeling like I was drowning. Every new piece of evidence made me more determined to fight back. But I also felt a strange sense of loss, like I'd lost the woman I loved, the woman I thought was my partner in life. Now she was just a stranger, a liar, someone who'd done everything possible to destroy us. One day, I confronted her again. I told her I knew about her meetings, her lies, her plans to leave. I told her I wasn't going to let her get away. With this, her response, she called me possessive and jealous and accused me of trying to control her life. She said I was holding her hostage. That was the moment I realized she was spinning a narrative, trying to make herself the victim. I just looked at her and said, "You lied to me, stole from me, and now you're trying to guilt me into backing off. Not happening." I told her I was going to fight for everything, my house, my money, my dignity. She then threatened to sue me over the house, claiming I was trying to cheat her out of her rights. I knew that was just her way of trying to manipulate the situation, but it made me angrier. I had every right to protect what was mine. I told her flatly that I would defend myself, that I had enough evidence to prove her lies and her thefts. That's when she finally realized I wasn't backing down. Her face twisted with frustration, and she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. That night I sat alone in the house she'd once called home, feeling emptier than ever. All her lies, her manipulations, her betrayal, it all hit me hard. I'd loved her, trusted her, and she'd turned around and used that trust to destroy us. It was like she'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. The thought made my stomach churn. I knew I had to keep fighting, but part of me wondered if I'd ever truly recover from this. Despite everything, I refused to give up. I told myself I'd get through it, that I'd reclaim what was mine, and that someday I'd find a way to move on. But right now, all I could do was brace myself for what was coming next, because I knew she wasn't going to go quietly. She'd fight me every step of the way, and I had to be ready for whatever she threw at me. This wasn't just a battle over money or a house. It was a fight for my life, my sanity, and whatever hope I had left for the future. The legal fight was relentless. Every day, I had new documents to review, new motions to file, and new lies to counter. Lisa's team was trying to spin everything, claiming I was abusive, controlling, and trying to keep her from freeing herself from a bad marriage. She even filed a restraining order, which she later dropped after I proved she was the one harassing me with calls and messages. But that was just her way of trying to distract from the fact that she'd already stolen a huge chunk of our savings and was planning to leave. Meanwhile, I was monitoring her movements through legal channels, trying to catch her in the act if she tried to disappear. She was still meeting with her boss, Mark, and I found out she'd even been talking about how she'd escape everything, her job, her marriage, her life here, by moving somewhere far away. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. All those signs I missed, all those moments I thought were innocent, had been part of her plan to run away with Mark and start over. The worst part was the house. She kept threatening to take me to court over it, claiming she had rights because she was entitled to half. I knew that wasn't true, but her words still hit hard. She'd always been the bitchy, manipulative type, and now she was trying to make me look like the bad guy in court. Every time I appeared before the judge, I felt like I was fighting a losing battle. Her lies were convincing, and her tears, oh, her tears were her weapon. She'd cry about how heartbroken she was, how she didn't want to lose everything, and how I was trying to ruin her life. I just sat there, listening, trying not to lose my temper. I knew the truth, and I knew I had enough evidence to prove she'd been lying. But it wasn't just about the money or the house anymore. It was about her controlling the narrative, trying to make me look like the villain. I had to stay strong, even when I wanted to scream at her to stop lying and face reality. One day, I got a call from the pie. Turns out, Lisa had been sneaking around even more, meeting with Mark outside of work, trying to set up a new life somewhere else. She'd been looking at apartments, researching new cities, even talking about starting fresh without him. That was the moment I realized she was planning to run, to leave everything behind and wipe her hands of me. I felt a surge of anger and betrayal so intense. I thought I might explode. I decided to confront her directly again. I called her up and told her I had enough evidence to prove she was planning to leave, and if she didn't come clean, I'd go to court and fight for full custody of the house, the money, and even seek a restraining order to keep her from disappearing. She tried to deny everything, of course, but I could hear the panic in her voice. She started accusing me of trying to control her life, saying I was jealous and possessive. Like it was my fault she'd been cheating, stealing, and planning to run. That night she showed up at the house unexpectedly. She looked frantic, desperate even. She begged me to let her stay to work things out. She said she loved me and that it was all just a mistake, that she'd never meant to hurt me. But I wasn't buying her tears anymore. I looked her in the eye and told her I knew everything. The affair, the transfer of money, her plans to leave, and that I was done playing her game. I told her she needed to leave for good this time, or I'd take her to court and fight for everything she was trying to steal from me. She screamed at me, called me crazy, accused me of trying to trap her, and then she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I stood there, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. The woman I'd loved, the woman I'd trusted was gone. All that was left was a bitter, angry shell of what we used to be. I looked around the house, realizing how much I'd lost. The betrayal cut so deep I didn't know if I'd ever really recover from it. But I also knew I wasn't going down without a fight. I had enough evidence to prove her guilt, and I was determined to get justice. The court was my last hope to reclaim what was rightfully mine, my house, my savings, my dignity. I'd make sure she paid for her lies, her betrayal, and her theft. I was done being the victim. From now on, I was going to be the one who fought back, no matter how much it hurt. Because if I didn't, I knew she'd just keep lying, stealing, and trying to destroy everything I cared about, and I wasn't going to let that happen. The court date finally rolled around after months of relentless battle, and I knew this was the moment where everything would either be settled or spiral even further out of control. I had my lawyer, a mountain of evidence, and a determination that refused to waver. Lisa showed up in court with that same bitchy smirk, trying to look innocent, as if she hadn't been caught red-handed. But I could see the desperation in her eyes, the same desperation that had driven her to lie, steal, and plan her escape. As the judge listened to both sides, I laid out the facts: the affair, the illegal transfer of our savings, her secret meetings, and her attempts to run away with Mark. I presented the bank statements, the emails, the location data, and the Pi's reports. Lisa's lawyer tried to spin her version of events, claiming she was misunderstood, that she was just confused, and that she had every right to do what she did. But I knew better. I had the proof, and I made damn sure the judge saw it. When it was my turn, I spoke honestly and directly. I told the court how she'd betrayed our marriage, how she'd lied and manipulated her way into stealing our life savings, and how her plan to leave us all behind was nothing short of betrayal. I explained that I wanted full custody of the house, that I would fight to recover the stolen money, and that her actions had irreparably damaged any trust I once had in her. My voice was firm, unwavering, because I knew this was my shot to set things right. The judge listened carefully, then made a ruling that I'd hoped for. She ordered Lisa to return the $250, $0 to pay damages for the breach of trust, and awarded me full custody of the house. She also issued a restraining order, preventing Lisa from contacting me or trying to interfere further. The courtroom was silent as the judge finalized her decision, and I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. It was over, at least the legal part. After the court, Lisa was furious. She yelled and screamed outside the courtroom, calling me every name in the book, accusing me of ruining her life and threatening to fight back. But I knew I'd done what I had to do. I'd fought for what was mine, and I'd won in the only way I could, by standing my ground and exposing her lies. Watching her storm off, I felt a strange sense of closure, even if the pain of everything still lingered deep inside. In the days that followed, I began to rebuild. I sold the house, moved into a new place, and started piecing my life back together. The betrayal still haunted me, but I refused to let it define me. I learned that trust is fragile, that people can surprise you in the worst ways, and that sometimes the only way to survive is to fight back with everything you've got. I also realized how much I'd taken for granted, how important it is to pay attention to the signs, to listen to that little voice that warns you something's wrong before it's too late. Looking back, I wish I could say I feel completely healed, but I don't. There's still a part of me that feels broken, that questions everything I thought I knew about love and loyalty. But I also feel stronger. I know now that I can survive betrayal, that I can stand up for myself even when it feels impossible. And I hope anyone reading this who's going through something similar learns that it's okay to fight, to stand up for what's right, and that sometimes the biggest victory is simply walking away with your dignity intact. So here's my final advice: trust yourself. Watch the signs. Don't let anyone steal your peace or your money. And never forget, you're stronger than you think, even when it feels like the world is falling apart around you.